to another episode of EMA Cloud Rant. We have again identified 3 interesting topics of the week for you. Topic number 1 is a different approach to managing IT infrastructure. Number 2 is our friends from Chef and Puppet and configuration management tools in general. What's going on there? Everybody talks about DevOps. Why are those guys not taking off a lot more than they currently are? And topic number 3 is a disaster recovery as a service. Sounds boring, can cost a lot of extra money, not just in terms of what you have to pay to Amazon, if that's your target, but also when there is an audit, the scrambling and manual work that you may have to do can be a pain, can be costly. So let's jump in, Jens, with our first topic. Managing the data center, managing workloads in a top-down and a business-centric manner, where you say, I have a business goal like customer retention. Derived from that business goal are IT goals like latency of an application in the data center, maximum latency, high availability, disaster recovery windows, all of those things. That is a new approach, and we've talked about this startup, this company called CloudFabrix in the past, and they have a very, very interesting way of looking at this challenge and of kind of cutting through that complexity of all those red lights and flashing lights and your dashboards that you may have in your data center, and giving the individual groups, and it's really all about groups, right? You have the network operations managers, you have the VMware managers, you have the storage guys, you have so many different groups, and it's very difficult to diagnose what's important, what you have to do first, second, and third, and what may actually not matter for your business goal, right? What are your thoughts, Jens, from a business perspective? People usually manage bottom up, right?
Yeah, most of the time, and the data center has so many different layers that it's really, and of course teams that hardly talk to each other, so it's really difficult to cut through the jungle and see the light and what's happening through all these layers. And I think CloudFabrix has some innovative approach here.
Yeah. And they have something really interesting because you need to know the application dependencies, right? You can't just say, I'm going to manage this from the business goal down to the storage LAN, right? You have to say, how do all the applications that I have, sometimes there's over 1,000 applications, right? You have to know how they all belong together. And CloudFabrix uses that as a starting point. It's quite fascinating. The way they do it. It's very ambitious, right? Without any agents.
Yeah, I think they're not the first ones who try to do this. I remember a product, I think it still exists. VMware, what's it called? Infrastructure Navigator, also with a similar goal, but I've never seen it at a single customer. I've only heard about a single one that was supposed to be using it, and I think it never really took off.
Yeah. I think the devil is always in the details with this stuff, right? It's mapping application dependencies. There is so much going on in the data center, and I think keeping all this stuff up to date, feeding in the manual information that those tools often need, customers at a certain point, have the stuff outdated, and it's not that useful.
I think you really need to be specialized, like focus on this one thing like CloudFabrix is doing, instead of like a huge company like VMware that has so many, do you say irons in the fire? So many like things that they need to deal with. And then of course it's a great idea, but maybe a big company, a huge enterprise like VMware is not a place where you can make it with that. So yeah, CloudFabrix, so what you've told me, and I think you've seen a demo.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's really fascinating in that they call this app dimensions. And I don't know if I love the term dimension for it, but what a dimension is in their definition, they basically tell you what matters, what you have to monitor, right? So a SharePoint deployment or an Oracle deployment can have 15, 18 app dimensions per server rule. And the NAP dimension in that case is a specific configuration, for example, of the log files, and it can be any little detail, the setup of DHA, of the SQL Server cluster in the background, whatever. Can be a relatively small detail that is very, very important for your business, because if you don't get that small detail right, other bad things could happen. You're increasing the probability for bad things to happen. And what those guys give you is they give you a score, right? They say, yeah, you get an 83 based on how you set up your data center aligned with your business goal. And I find that fascinating, especially when you look at the cost goal, right? We talk about 50-60% over provisioning in terms of infrastructure. What CloudFabrix does is they say we enforce 5%. You cannot go over your threshold by more than 5% in terms of Amazon cloud spending, right? If you go more, then you have to go less somewhere else. It is basically that single pane of glass that enforces your whole IT spending, if that's how you want to use it. It's fascinating.
Yeah, so to prevent like unexpected surprises here in the costing department, that makes sense. What about DevOps, Torsten? What's happening in that field?
Very interesting this week. Had some conversations with Puppet and Chef. And, the question that is kind of the elephant, or it is the elephant in the room, right? Nobody likes to name that elephant. Why is this only say, $100 million marketplace in terms of revenue? Why is it not a multi-billion market? I don't get it, right? So we were talking a little bit about that. And at the end of the day, my hypothesis here is that it's all about the integration, right? People, they do it themselves. There's a pocket of Chef users here, maybe a pocket of Puppet users, but at the end of the day, it has to be centrally governed, right? And you have System Center in your data center, and that's what it needs to integrate with, or we realize, or whatever you may have. And my suspicion is that that's why it's still not catching on the way everybody thinks it should be.
I can just judge from the community. As you know, I'm a big community and Twitter guy. And I never, ever read anything in this VMware community in which I'm very, very active. Nobody tweets about Chef or Puppet or anything, even if I think VMware is one of the investors in Puppet. Aren't they?
Mm. Yeah.
I think they are. So, but you never read anything about it. So maybe Puppet might be an exhibitor at VMworld, but they don't pop up. They are not visible in the community. And that's also kind of strange, because so many people know the names of these tools, but you don't see them.
Yeah, it's like if you want to be cool, you use Chef or Puppet, right? But at the end of the day, when you then look at the customer penetration and at the payment streams, it's really not as significant. And I mean, one interesting piece, and I don't know how much you can add to this, Jens, is the VMware Photon project, right? Where there will be vSphere containers supported, and I'm wondering if that's good or bad for Puppet and Chef and the other guys, if I have a Photon.
Maybe it's hard to say actually about container orchestration. Hard to say.
I mean, there's a put container, right? At the end of the day, it's about if I have deployment templates that I can't deviate from, right? So instead of my developers just deploying whatever they want, they have to use the Chef or Puppet objects, and they basically say, here's what kind of a database I want. They don't say, I want this to be on Amazon, I want this to be that and that large. They don't define what's behind it. They just say, here's the service that I want. Now go ahead and deliver it to me. And then in the background, Puppet and Chef go out and do it for them. And that enforces compliance, right? And if they see that a server or an infrastructure resource is out of compliance, they go and bring it back into compliance. Or they have also ways to not even let it go out of compliance. They both handle it a little bit different than SaltStack. again handles it a little bit different, more in real time. But that's at the end of the day what they're there for, right? It's that abstraction layer. And it will be interesting to see if with Photon and containers, how much data is still needed.
Yeah, we will see. Do you know when Photon will be out? Did VMware commit to some sort of like date?
I wish I knew. Later this year is what we heard, right? It was gonna be in 6.5 and will come later. So yeah, my last topic here, Jens, and that's maybe for you as a practitioner very interesting as well, is disaster recovery, right? It's a big use case for Amazon.
Well, also for VMware, basically, they've been pushing the Site Recovery Manager product, and maybe together with some other products that you as a cloud provider, we could set up in some sort of hosted environment and offer as a service to our VMware customers. But it also it's only affordable for the real big ones, maybe because it lacks the flexibility. So Amazon is a good keyword here. So.
Right, I mean, they use Veeam, people use Veeam, people use Certo, people use, those third-party tools. So at the end of the day, you can have different deployment targets, right? Amazon doesn't have to be your only deployment target with those tools.
Yeah, and Amazon is also not cheap or something. Of course, customers want always choice. They don't want the vendor lock-in effect. So if they can choose, then you can easily switch to something that is more cost effective or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the interesting piece. I mean, we have a lot of research out there that shows the degree of over provisioning that happens with Amazon, and it shows the degree of non-compliance that customers are subject to in Amazon, simply because you basically have your bread and butter administrators that are used to VMware, and all of a sudden they're responsible for DR and AJ on Amazon, right? This can lead to issues, and there's a couple of vendors, hosting vendors, quite interesting. Island being one of them. There used to be a boutique, as they called it, a boutique hosting vendor. But at the end of the day, they acknowledge that their big strength is security and compliance, and the ability to extend the customer's environment into their environment, and giving the customer a control and compliance dashboard where they can then say, yeah, the audit is next month. I'm gonna pull all the reports that I need without any manual intervention. Jens, I mean, seeing the over provisioning and all the hassle that sometimes comes with Amazon, something like that could be interesting. People should at least look at it instead of saying, oh, we have to do everything with Amazon.
Yeah, definitely. And again, VMware is also getting more flexible. As you know, next week is the Amazon reInvent conference in Las Vegas. I think it's booked out by now. And I think we'll see a lot of vendors or partners, even VMware, presenting their integration with Amazon, because this was the big thing recently at VMworld, or even before that. VMware was announcing its partnership with VMware, of course with Amazon AWS. So yeah, let's see what happens. Talking of VMware, we had our rant of the week last week, and it kind of centered on the launch of the general availability of vSphere 6.5, and we were kind of disappointed because the containers thing was still not in the software. But now, I talked to a couple of colleagues, and I looked at upgrading our own kind of lab environment, and look what do you think, which versions of NSX, network virtualizations, VMware's network virtualization platform, is vSphere 6.5 compatible with? What do you think?
Very old ones?
No, none actually.
None?
So I've rechecked today on the 21st of November, so 1 week after general availability basically, and VMware 6.5, vSphere 6.5 supports nothing NSX-wise. I would say it's kind of disappointing.
That's incredible, seeing the importance of NSX, right? NSX, it's basically the big thing to make workloads mobile, and they're all over the place, doing dog and pony shows with customers, and now this. I mean, Is there any announcement when this is going to be fixed?
I haven't seen anything. Well, I didn't dig it too deep. I just rechecked if it's still, and I have the compatibility metrics open here in the background, and really it's just a straight line of red logos here. So vSphere 6.5 and the vCenter and the hypervisor, 0 compatibility with NSX at the moment.
Wow.
And I think there had been recently some discovered bugs. I think 6.2.3 was completely pulled because VMware had a major bug. And I think something similar was also found in 6.2.4. So VMware really needs to focus on quality assurance, kind of.
Wow. Absolutely, because that is their bread and butter, right? They're the solid guys, and they're the guys who say you should stay in your own data center, right? Be safe. So they need to be sure of their quality. Thank you, Jens. And yeah, we'll see if we can talk to them next week in Las Vegas and get some more of the scoop there. This was another edition of EMA Cloud Rants. Thank you very much, and see everybody next week.